Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin,
And I'm Josh.
and we have episode 5 of Andor to break down, and we're also going to talk about the hype of Tales of the Jedi that's coming out this month. All 6 episodes at once. I'm very excited for it. But let's kind of start with our first thoughts about episode 5. For Andor. I know a lot of people were thinking that we were going to get that dinner party that they kind of hinted at, where we would dive deeper into the politics with no other than Sly Moore, and we didn't get that. And then we also thought the heist would actually begin. Didn't really start at all, really. Like they like left the camp. Like that really was it. Spoiler alert for this episode. But yeah, no, it's just like I love the show. I love what they're trying to do. It's just I just find it interesting. Like it's a very slow start, and there is a lot of character development just so we could get into a Rogue One situation, because Josh and I were just talking about this. Like most likely the crew's not going to make it, and it's just going to be like a Rogue One situation, and they're trying to do that in a TV show, and I think the person that wrote it is diving into that kind of vibe again, like he did in Rogue
It's
One.
definitely becoming a character drama. It's funny of how many episodes do we know that this is currently?
12
episodes. So it's
of the first season, and then 12 episodes will be the
first
next
season is already
that will
like
be it.
it's like double the amount of Kenobis. So I think it's an absolute shock of how fast that show went, and they're just hitting so many beats and in Kenobi, whereas you hit this and it's now super slow. And it's building up on so many different things. It's trying to build up these new characters. It's pushing so much drama and character development to the point where it definitely has to deliver on that next episode. And I feel like if we don't get something absolutely amazing, I feel like a lot of people are going to get disappointed, because I mean I'm hearing a lot of people are like, hey man, I want to see something happen. Like, I mean, we've been waiting and we didn't get like the dinner party, and I feel like that's why a lot of people were let down. It's like, hey man, I'm trying to get more out of the Star Wars show, and I'm not getting it just yet. So I mean, I think the delivery is going to be great. We're building up these characters, and I do believe that we're going to see some deaths coming up soon.
Oh yeah, I mean it's building up. Is just like sometimes I feel like I'm watching a show on HBO Max. Like I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, wow, like we're diving deep. Yeah, and we're diving deep into like these dark, topics and situations, because we find out that
me personally, I'm loving the slow burn. Like I'm loving this out of this show, but I completely understand in today's 2022 world where everything is so fast paced that this doesn't fit the typical mold for Disney. Neither does it fit it for Star Wars. And I can understand why people are having running out of patience, but I believe it's going to be worth it in the end.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, I think it's going to be worth it. It's just, you're definitely right. It's not something that we're used to. We are used to a story that's down to the point, like in one episode, and then that just continues, just like in Mandalorian, and in Book of Boba Fett, and then in Kenobi. All those stories were written by people involved in on the Mandalorian team, and now you jump into Andor, which is Star Wars, but it's written by people that were involved on those teams. Like this guy, helped write Rogue One, and the reason why that movie was so great, yes, it was Star Wars, but also it was something that that was dealing with not like super main characters. It was dealing with characters that we could relate to, but we didn't know that they would die. Mm-hmm. But now we have, this show Andor that is dealing with a main character where we know his fate, and we know that most of the people around him probably aren't going to make it because they're not in any future Star Wars projects. And if they are, their story isn't that, huge. It's not that, important to the main plot. I find everything that we've gotten so far interesting, but I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everything that we've gotten so far interesting. But I also find everyth but I think of what you said was true. I think it does need to pick up the pace a little bit, because if we experience the next episode and the heist has not begun and they're just up on the hill, like just talking around the fire, and then
Mhm.
at the end of the episode they're getting ready and going down, I'm gonna be like, is this an episode of Dragon Ball Z? Like, is
I
like,
mean,
tune in next time. Like,
here's another problem with it, this is the high and the low valleys of a the three, like as I would say, it's like here's the pilot episode, the middle where there's tension, and then the payoff, and it's a three act, three episodes, um parts. So I would say what's probably happening is they went through the high valleys of the first episode. We got the first episode, second episode, and third episode, and that really got us into the world. So now we got this. Then we got episode four, which is the beginning. Then we got the middle, which is this last episode. But it's because that they're not another. It's not releasing another three episodes. We haven't gotten that point yet, and it's like, all right, come on, we want to pick up that pace. It's kind of like we never got that. We're not getting the payoff just yet, and I
no.
think it's harder when you don't have all these episodes releasing at once, where it would be on like a Netflix series where everything just comes out at once, where we can't just continue it. And I'm okay with that, because we had that in The Mandalorian and we had so much speculation, but I feel like speculation can be dangerous, especially in Star Wars, because it builds up
Yeah.
so much hype. And I feel like Star Wars is one of the main series, as well as Marvel, where the speculation can actually hurt what the product is in the end. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I'm excited, and I do truly think that the next episode is going to pay off this heist.
Okay. What were your favorite parts of this episode?
Um, the character development and seeing where these characters came from and their motivations, I think was, and definitely seeing how what the reason is to see these baby steps of the rebellion. Um, because it's not Saul Guerrera's style of rebel group, which is very interesting to me, because we know that's like guerrilla tactics, that's all serious.
And I
This
think
one
when
is.
we see him pop up, like, because from the trailer we see him,
Mhm.
and when Saw does pop up, action will be happening. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
As Rogue One, we know that this is like a terrorist. They're like a terrorist group,
yeah.
which I think they're gonna lean into in this, is be like, because he's not as damaged as he is later in the future for Rogue One. But I think that they're gonna show like, yeah, he means serious business with his rebel
Yeah.
fights. He's only guerrilla tactic style.
And something that I could see them doing as well is that the mission with the heist might not go well, and then
Mhm.
Luthen will be like, all right, I'm desperate. I have to go all in. And then he goes and finds Saw and is like, hey, I've got this other thing. I need you. Can you help me out? And then like Saw comes in, and then Mom Mon Mothma is not the biggest fan of Saw Gerrera, and we see that in
Mhm.
Rogue One, and we see that in Rebels. And I think maybe when Saw pops up and everything, I think that will be the origin story of why she's not his biggest fan. Um,
Okay.
because yeah, and I could see him like, just because he's already kind of crazy
Mhm.
after his sister's death, and
Mhm.
then like see him kind of turn towards, I don't care, like how I get my results as long as I get them. He's
Mhm.
that type of guy, and I think we'll see that transition
The ends
more.
justify the means is what he believes in,
Yeah,
and she's much more of building hope towards the future,
yeah,
where I would feel like it's the difference between hope and revenge. Um,
yeah.
whereas, yeah, I don't think we'll ever see he never has that epiphany where he's like, maybe the revenge was never worth it in the end, besides when he's telling them like, save the dream and like save the hope,
Yeah.
in Rogue One. That I think they'll build up to that and be
Save the
like,
rebellion, save the dream. Yeah,
yeah, I think they'll build up to that and add more to his character, because I mean he pops up in so many different things. Um,
yeah. Games, shows, like you know, I
Games,
was
shows, books. Yeah, he's
yeah.
been popping up everywhere.
He was also the first character from the Clone Wars, like that wasn't like a main character to become live action. And I was so excited when they were like, he's going to be in Rogue One, and the fact that
Hmm.
they got Forrest Whitaker to play him, I was like, hell yeah, let's go! Like that was a great acting choice. And then to see him after Rogue One to to show up in Rebels, which had a huge plot point in
Hmm.
Rebels on Geonosis, talking about the Death Star, even though they didn't know they were talking about the Death Star. And then he showed up in Jedi Fallen Order, and then he showed up again in Bad Batch. And I'm like, this character is popping up everywhere. And it's because of he is part of the birth of the rebellion. Like he plays a big part of it. And I think they're adding it to it because they're trying to show you that not everyone in the rebellion is, very light. As we watch A New Hope, it's like, oh, these are the good guys. But then you find out later you've got people like Cassian on there who will also just do anything to get the mission done.
Hmm.
And it's same with Saw Gerrera. So I
Yeah.
mean, he's a very interesting character. He's a very high stakes character. So I'm really excited to see him in the show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Don't know if it'll be next episode, but
Probably not.
it was interesting seeing Skarsgård's character during this episode feel so hopeless.
I love his character. I really like him. He's
He
um
just has to like I like how he's basically just having to put his faith in his team because
yeah.
he's just sitting there on his comm radio, just hoping for some messages that like, hey, look, like we're doing good, we're gonna pull this off. But yeah, no, it's very interesting seeing everyone be so vulnerable, especially Mon Mothma in this episode.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah,
even
no,
can't even control her own family, but yet she'll get to
yeah,
go lead the
no,
rebellion.
I was going to talk about that because I was blown away that they were kind of diving into that where it was like she's like, maybe on the verge of her marriage being done. Like, will we see them like split up like in Star Wars and like see divorce? Because it's like we never seen that kind of stuff before, and it's like on the verge of happening. Like you can see her marriage is falling apart. Like in this,
Mhm,
that's very clear, and they're trying to make that clear. So I'm just really curious of where they'll take that story.
mhm.
But yeah, no, it is a
And
very dark, adult show. And it's very crazy because it's Star Wars. We never thought we would get something like that, at least not this soon. Uh, but it's, it's here, it's happening. Not everyone's happy about it. But honestly, I think it's something that Star Wars needed
mhm.
because it can't be all, baby
in
Yoda and lightsabers all the time. Like it has to be something that's gonna make
in a
us all.
comparison of what I would say is kind of like no one took superhero movies seriously until Batman came out.
Yeah,
Um, in a serious take of this, I would say Batman being the original is going to be like Rogue One with a serious take on Star Wars, and then I would say that this is like a Christopher Nolan serious take
yeah,
for Star Wars, and I'm really enjoying it of how they're taking their time and pushing like this is a serious series. I'm just hoping that it pays off. But if we want to get into the full breakdown,
yeah,
the episode does begin on the character from uh when he meets his mom. They're
yeah.
continuing inside.
That
You're
is
yeah,
so.
you're seeing how whipped he actually is of a character. His parents like,
He
hey,
is a
like
mama's
you need a
boy. Yeah.
job. Yeah, like you've already put all this like shame on us. Basically, you need to get a job. We're gonna have to call in a favor, and I'm wondering if he's related to someone that we might know in the future.
Well, so in all right, so in Legends and everything, and I think it is canon. Grand Marf. So Tarkin actually does have a son,
Mhm.
we like never really see like his son except, one time in the book, and then like in the book, and Vader kills him. I don't know if that's canon or not anymore, but I could definitely like, see him being related to a Imperial officer in some way. And then if that's the
Yeah, you had
case,
to
it's
call
like
in a
then
favor from your uncle, I believe that's who she was talking
yeah,
about. She's
okay.
like, "Yeah, you needed some new prospects," and I was like, "I wonder if they're alluding to that he's related to someone serious." I wouldn't like, imagine if it was Krennic, like, I wouldn't like, that would be pretty funny.
That would be kind of wild to me. I mean, I could see that happening, but like, I mean, I could see it also
I
being
feel like
like,
it's someone's gonna get him a job in the Empire.
I just don't think he's gonna like it in the Empire, and then he'll be like, all right, I'm joining the rebellion. Like, I'm tired of this. Uh, yeah, no, I
Do you
don't
feel like
know.
we'll see an Urso in this?
I could see Galen, probably not Jin. I could definitely see Galen. I could see Jin being, I could see her being referenced by Saw, in some
Mhm,
way, but I don't think, she would make a cameo. But I could definitely see Galen Erso making a cameo. I could see Krennic making a cameo.
mhm,
I think all those big Rogue One characters will play a bigger part in season 2
mhm,
of Andor, because that leads directly into the events of Rogue One.
mhm.
Um, and I'm really excited just to watch all shows all the way through, and then lead into the events of Rogue One. I think that's going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
really cool.
And
Yeah.
then the next scene that we get is back at the camp, and I forget what the character's name is, but he has his shirt off and he has all of his tattoos exposed.
Uh, yeah.
What? You're like,
No, I just found his character like, I don't know. He's all about himself, and he tries to claim that, like, I'm here for the team, but he's really, I think I think it's jealousy, and I think it's like, him thinking, I'm better than you. The team doesn't need you. They have me. Why are you here? Like, that's the type of vibe that he's bringing.
th- I
Um
I'm gonna say I think it's because doesn't he doesn't trust him at all. Which it's morely pushed in the next, like, in a couple scenes
yeah.
later on, but yeah, he's like, hey, I saw, like, he's talking to Cassian, and he's like, hey, I saw that your eyes went right to my tattoos. Like, you know what this is. None of them know. None of them know, like, where I'm from. None of them know that the pain I've been through, but I know that you do. And I was like, so these are some secrets that they both share. And he's pointing out all of his tattoos. And Cassian's like, so what do you want? Just revenge against the Empire from what they did to you? And yeah, I thought that was really cool seeing all of his interesting tattoos. But yeah, he's definitely the one of the group who does not trust any outsider into the group. So I was like, very interesting. I like more of this outside world building from that scene. That was really cool.
Yeah.
So what did you think? Just like, you just don't like his character right now?
Well, I mean, it's honestly, it was just the vibe that he gave off, where it was just like, I don't trust you because I don't understand, of why you're here. And then when he eventually finds out, of like why he's here and everything, like he's um I think he's upset, but then also he's very surprised with his honesty, and then he's like, okay, I'll come clean, and like, and he, gives him the other reason why. So
Mhm.
it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm not gonna be really sad if he goes, but there's other characters in there where I'm just like, oh, okay.
And then the next scene is Mon Mothma. They're talking about how the party went, and that, but she's having a conversation with her daughter and her husband, and it is not going well. That she cannot control her daughter at all, and her husband is not helping her at all to control her daughter. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
it's it's family drama, but it's so interesting to see Mon Mothma be. She's so vulnerable. She's putting
That
so
kind of
much out there for
character,
this
yeah.
rebellion, and her marriage is not going swimmingly at all. And I'm
No.
like, wow, it's so interesting to see such a giant player in the rebellion be reduced down to, yeah, just being so vulnerable. Like, not only just towards her own life, but just, yeah, everything. It's very funny and interesting to see.
I'm I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up seeing Bail Organa. Like I could see him coming. I mean, of
Being that
there,
extra person that they were talking about last episode joining the circle.
yeah.
Okay.
Because some people know this, some people don't. But the actress playing her, her first time wasn't playing
Isn't that
that
deleted
character
scene?
in Rogue One. It's like she like played that character in the deleted scene from
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith,
Mhm.
And then she played her again in Rogue One, and then in Rebels, and now again. It's just funny because of it. It was like it was a deleted scene. It
Mhm.
never made it to on the big screen. But some people like. I'm not sure if you watched it yet. I watched it like at least like twice a year, but it's the 4 hour cut of Revenge of the Sith, and
Mhm.
they put in all of like the big deleted scenes, and they
Yeah, yeah,
remaster it
yeah.
to make it look like it's so good. But yeah, so yeah, no,
Do we
it
know if
was
that
really
deleted scene is
interesting.
canon?
What?
Do we know if that deleted scene is canon or is it not?
I'm gonna say what they're telling us is true from a certain
Y
point of view
It
because
it
not
happened,
all.
but it may not have happened
Yeah,
that exact way, that kind of
right.
thing.
Because if you look at that deleted scene from Empire Strikes Back of where C3PO is running, past that door, he runs back and he takes the warning sign off,
Mhm.
and then the stormtroopers come up, and then the wampas eat them or whatever. That it's actually canon that there are wampas in there, and that warning sign is for the wampas because there was a short that was made. It's called Forces of Destiny, and it shows Chewie, Leia, and R2, and they actually trapped the wampas in there, and then at the end they end up putting that sign on the door, and it's like that's canon. There are wampas in there. That scene happened. So
Mhm.
I could definitely them seeing them being like, hey, that scene with her is canon because
Okay.
she came from that deleted scene. There's
Mhm.
nowhere else in the movie where she shows up. So
And then our next scene is back at the camp, and it's everyone's favorite character, the guy from Black Mirror. Um, and he's asking Cassian what um his view is of his spiritual view. Um, it's very interesting seeing he's like a spiritual character on the effects of what this rebellion is and what the empire is to someone. See, he I think he is the pure he's the representation of the pure emotional view of a rebellion.
yeah,
Oh yeah, like his comments about how we biologically can't handle like atrocities to the point where we will ignore them. Where he says like one atrocity, everyone would have completely
yeah.
dropped the empire, but if you have 40 atrocities, then we just can't handle it, and you'll just go by it without even caring. And I think that's a really cool way of thinking.
That that line also reminded me of Bill Burr's character in Mandalorian, where in season 2 they are in the tank, and then he's like talking about it doesn't matter whose side you're on, either way you are, it doesn't matter whose side you're on, either way there's one side that is still trying to control the galaxy. Like
Mhm.
it's just the way it is, and people try and look at that in a black and white perspective, when in reality it's you
It's a
know
gray, yeah.
yeah, it's a gray area because of the Rebel Alliance doesn't like how the Empire, you know, how they run things, and the Empire doesn't like how the Rebels run things. And either
Mhm.
way, they are trying to be power hungry and move their way up and be like, boom, now I'm in charge. And it's because everyone is, trying to move up and, not be, controlled by someone.
Mhm.
And it's just the way it is.
And then on our next scene, Cassian gets called into the planning room of what they're gonna do with the actual shipment, the train system, and they're asking him like, hey, do you know how to do you know how the train system attaches to the rail so that, and they keep asking him the same question. He's like, wait a minute, you have no idea how to get this thing off the rail, do you? And they kind of like try and coerce him, like saying like, hey, you have a job to do. We're going to do a job. We need to know if you know how to do this. He's like, you actually have no idea how you're going to get it off. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. And it's funny because I think it's like a callback to Scarif Base and how
Didn't
their
have a
plan
real
is like,
plan.
we're just gonna keep on going no matter what until we figure it out, like,
Yeah.
or we're dead. And I was like, interesting. And then he's like, you know what, I know how to drive this, I can get it off, I'm gonna be the one who's driving. And they're like, no, you can't do that, and like, we already have a driver. And he's like, no, if it's my ass on the line, which is what he said, that's his quote,
Yeah.
I am going to I'm gonna drive it. And I was like, ooh, interesting. Which we don't know if it's a lie or not. It could be a lie.
I mean, I don't know. I think because we are getting more character development in this episode, it was just like I think Cassian will care a little bit about some people, but it's it is very interesting to me to see Cassian be in this situation of where, he's normally just doing this for himself, and then, him kind of confessing up and being like, yo, listen, I'm just here for the money. That's why I'm here. Deal with it as you will. And I think he told them because he's like, in a way he felt bad, but also I think he was trying to get their perspective on why they're there. And then that kind of, breaks down to people, talking to him more. And I think he's trying not to get attached because I think he knows that they're kind of doomed at this point.
Yeah. And then in the we see Gorn, which is the guy who's with the Empire. Their man on the inside. He goes back to start talking about the protecting the shipment with the other officers, and then we get another scene with them training to look like they're soldiers in the Empire. And during that scene, they're marching with their weapons to look like they're a part of it. And then Cassian points out that, hey, you do realize that you should probably switch because you look like you don't use your right hand, you use your left hand. Like, it's not what you're comfortable with. So it's pretty interesting seeing the leader be like, oh, okay, you're very focused on the team. And to Cassian, like, he's like, you pointed that out very quickly. So it's cool seeing how in detail Cassian is in trying to save himself in this whole situation. Yeah, because he asks him, you have to switch, and then the leader's like, okay, yeah, okay, we're gonna switch up in different formation because of him using his left hand. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, no. I now from the trailers we know he is wearing they're wearing mud trooper uniforms, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw them marching, I was like, oh, like stormtroopers. But then I was like, wait a minute, no, they are definitely not going to be wearing stormtroopers because there actually wasn't really any stormtroopers on base. So as far as we've seen, it's mainly, officers and mud troopers.
Mm-hmm.
There was also an actor in there who is British, and he was on Agents of Shield and stuff like that. And I've noticed, like, if you didn't know that the show was being made in London, you could definitely tell, because there are a lot of like those like British-based actors,
High-name
and
British actors, yeah, and
yeah,
there are a lot of them are with the Empire, which is great to see again, great to hear again.
Yep.
The next scene is when they hear a TIE fighter coming by, And they end up all like covering up their blasters, and the TIE fighter comes swinging by and basically just to terrorize them, and it flies super low, kicking up all that water. I was like, wow, it's really cool how we've seen TIE fighters hundreds of times before, but yet in this they do make them like a terrifying threat.
Do you think that the pilot spotted them, and then we find out later, like, that Gorn is just like, oh yeah, like I haven't seen any reports or anything on the TIE fighter,
I don't
the
think
pilot
so,
confesses.
because their little place or whatever is a farm. The only thing that they were trying to hide was just the blasters, not themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
Because yeah, they still got all the sheep out there. That's completely fine, because they know that there's farmers, because they were talking about how many they basically wiped out and basically drove from the land. So, but they do know that there are still some farmers. There are not many, but there is still some.
So something I'm hoping that we get in season 2, and I think it won't happen until we get Ahsoka, because in Ahsoka we know that we'll probably see Thrawn in there, and I'm like, if we get Thrawn in season 2 of Andor, that would be great, because right now it's the race between Thrawn and Krennic of getting their 2 top secret projects done for first, right? So Krennic is trying to get his Death Star finished, and then Thrawn is trying to get his TIE Interceptor, TIE Defender. It's the TIE fighter that like has like the 3 like here, hang on. Here's the example. Cool. All right, so you like have the TIE fighter. It's got 2 right here, and it's got 1 on top, and it's got shields, and it's like the first TIE fighter to ever have shields. And they actually explore that in Star Wars Rebels, and that time period is happening like around the events of Andor. So it's like I could definitely see like, them coming to a meeting, because they actually pull Thrawn to Coruscant, because Thrawn has to try and get his project to be the main priority over the Death Star. So I would love to see Thrawn in this. I know we're kind of tracking, but you were talking about the TIE fighter. I was like, you know what? It would be really interesting to see Thrawn show up. So
Oh yeah, for
happens
sure.
soon.
And then I think the next scene that we get is we cut back to that investigative Imperial girl who is told like, hey, like I want you to just to drop all this. Like, there's no need to investigate any further. Just get back to your weekly quotas. That's what I want you to do. And so she's still investigating it. She's doing it on her own time now instead of listening. So they get that interesting quote where they bring up all these different places where it's like Jakku to Kessel, all these different incidences, never hitting the same place over and over again. They're always different places that the rebels have been hitting. So she's starting to catch on to it, but she can't prove it at the moment, which is very interesting.
I can't. I'm gonna have to rewatch it again. Oh no, but like no. There was one planet that they were at. Oh yeah, the planet Fondor. And they talked about that, and I was like, Star Wars Battlefront 2, nice. Because
Kessel, Fondor.
Yep.
Kessel, Fondor, and Jakku. That's what they were talking about.
And I love how they keep talking, like kind of bringing stuff up from the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, because the last time they did it was season 2 of Mando, where they talked about Operation Cinder, and I was really blown away when they did talk about Operation Cinder. Did you play the campaign at all or no?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So when they like talked about Operation Cinder and that, I was blown away. And then when they talked about Fondor, I was like, oh no way! I was just playing the campaign the other day. That's so cool. So I love how they're making different preferences towards that. Now I'm hoping at some point that we actually get a Jedi Fallen Order reference. I think that's the next step that they need to go. Like as much as I love the Star Killer one that we got last week, like Cal Kestis is canon. That story is canon, and that happens during that 20-year gap from New Hope to from Revenge of the Sith to New Hope. So I would love to see some type of reference from Jedi Fallen Order to that, and maybe in the events of Jedi Fall in Jedi Survivor, we'll see maybe somehow that kind of ties in into the events that are closer to Andor. We don't know exactly where in the timeline it's happening, but most likely it's going to be further in the future of that gap from Revenge of the Sith to New Hope.
Oh yeah. And then the next scene that we get is back to the camp. They're on their way. They packed all their things and they're ready to start heading out. So that's where they're about to start their whole mission. And then after that, we get cut back to the guy and his mom. And she's still just berating him about different things. We get the Cocoa Puffs in green milk or blue milk, which I was laughing about. And I was like, yeah, I can't wait for that to be a cereal.
Yep. Yep. Oh man. I know. It was really funny because for me, we've seen a decent amount of the lower levels of Coruscant and the way that they act and everything. And I think the way that his mom is acting is like she's not in the higher up levels of Coruscant, but she's trying to act like she is. And I think that's really, really interesting. Honestly,
I that's why I think that she is related to someone very important.
Right. Yeah. And I honestly would love just a show that just took place in Coruscant. I think that would just be
pretty cool.
And I guess the old game 1313 that got canceled.
I was literally gonna.
I was like turn that into a show because of that game was really interesting of what we've seen. I mean, and of just turning that into where it's just dealing with everything in the underworld and stuff like that. That's live action.
I think that would be like have you seen Dread?
Yes.
I feel like it would be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a thing to get from the bottom all the way to the top, and you would go through like it'd be like a reverse of the layers of hell.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's going up, and I think that'd be really, really cool.
Yeah.
The next scene is back to them traveling, and Cassian's asking about Gorn and what the reason how they got an Imperial officer to start joining them, and she says, "Well, you ask a lot of questions, but he fell in love with a girl here, and then he lost the girl, and then he lost his taste for the Empire." And I was like, very interesting.
Character development.
And then it cuts to Gorn again, and they're loading all that shipment of the quota onto the train system. And as he's telling his subordinates or underlings, he's explaining like, hey, you're going to be down here watching the shipment tonight for tomorrow night, and I need you all eyes on this the whole time. And they're new, and they're like, hey, tomorrow is the night where they have all the stars out, and they're all exploding in the sky. Like, we were really hoping to like watch it, because it only comes around so many times a year. It's all going to be tomorrow. And he's like, well, I guess if you guys really want to see it, you guys can go see it. But when you come back down here, I need this place spick and span and all this kind of stuff. So they're really appreciative of that. And they're like, okay, great. And then they have no idea that basically they're getting the rug pulled out from underneath them. So I thought that was really cool. And he just turns around and he smiles
he's like,
nice. As the plans coming together.
Yeah. Now, something I was just thinking about. Do we know where they're trying to take the shipment to? Like, I mean, of where the heist will lead to? Because after they steal the quota, like, where is their destination? Because it can't be back to Coruscant, like to Luthen. It's going somewhere. Do you think it is to Saw?
I don't think we're sure just yet of where it's going. We just know that they're stealing it, which it's going to be nuts. Because I think there'll be like a plot point there. Because imagine if the plot point was never to steal the money, it was just to destroy the money.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Like, Yeah, and instead they're like, well, okay, we've got everything. They're like, the reason that we were never like we asked you if you knew how to fly it wasn't the fact of like if we could detach it, it was actually just in the fact that we needed you along the way. But yeah, you're disposable, or like as they said, they're like, he's expendable.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt that in the end they're like, they just either fail and the same kind of train thing happens with the coaxium in Solo, or
Yeah.
something interesting like that.
So you are saying that, that there's a chance that they might pull a Joker from the Dark Knight of where he's like, I'm only burning my half, and then he like throws like the
Because I mean it's still gonna really hurt the Empire.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is gonna fund like the rebels in the future, or because I mean like you would have put millions of trackers all over that thing and all this kind of other stuff. So I don't know. I think there's something more to it.
Okay. Interesting.
And then it cuts back to they finally find a spot to their travel up the mountains, and they finally find a spot to eat. And as they're all sitting down and relaxing, the character with the tattoos goes up on Cassian, sneaks up behind him, and sticks a knife to his neck.
Ugh.
Because yeah, he's easily doesn't trust him at all. And then rips off his blue kyber crystal necklace and then shows it to the group.
I knew it. And I was like, all right, dude.
He's like, I know you're lying. All this stuff. He's untrustworthy this whole time. The Sky Kyber's worth 30,000 credits. You've been hiding it this whole time.
I just love like how that's where his mind goes when like mine would be like it's just an heirloom, like it's something important to him, and instead of being like,
well, because
this is worth 30,000.
What he's been told is that he's on the mission to be a rebel as well. Like they're all there for the reason of like independence. It's not for money. Whereas as soon as he saw that kyber crystal, he's like, dude, that's more than just an heirloom, man. That thing's worth a lot of money. Like if you were just someone who was on this trip wanting the same views, you probably would have helped us by now with that kind of money, like helped us more. So what are you actually here for? Because this thing's worth a decent amount of money. Because I don't think they would have ever had that anywhere else. And because there's no trust in this, there's no trust between this group. That's the fracturing part of it, which is pretty interesting to me, because I think they're trying to say like, hey, this rebellion needs to be built off trust and hope. Whereas if you're not trustworthy, they keep on fighting in between each other. And then Cassian ends up just telling the truth. He's just like, hey, I'm getting paid for this.
Right.
And then that's when he actually stands down and is like, okay, yeah, fine. As long as you're getting paid for it, I guess that does make sense. It's finally good you started telling the truth to us. And I was like, interesting.
I mean, and that honestly was funny too. Because at that point, I think it was like, you know what? I got nothing to lose. I'll just tell you. And he was like, yeah, I'm getting paid. So what? Deal with it. I was like, all right, okay. I don't think we've really seen his real reason to join the Rebel Alliance yet. And I think hopefully in more flashbacks that we'll get that. Because I love Cassian as a character, but as of right now in the show,
he hasn't become the Cassian that we know yet.
Yeah. There is like not a real reason why he's fighting besides the pay right now. And we haven't seen anything that indicates him being like, oh, I really, really hate the Empire. Because of this. It's right now it's just because Cassian just needs money and he doesn't like the Empire. Like that's really like the perspective that I'm getting. So I'm really curious of what really made him be like, all right, I want nothing to do with the Empire. Because if we saw him as a kid, that had nothing to do with the Empire. That had to do with the separatists and like that. And we haven't seen the fall of the Republic yet. We know there's clones at some point, but we don't know when. And something that I'm hoping is that the first 6 episodes of the show is just like one plot, and then the next 6 episodes are like another plot. So I just don't want the heist
Okay.
to continue for all 12 episodes.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want it to
definitely.
end in this next episode, and then and episode 7 is when it begins the next story.
Well, I
And
mean,
I
we
think
definitely did see on the IMDb page that we have only so many episodes for some characters in our group. So
I I know that, but at the same time, anyone can add, on that
it's
page.
true.
But I'm very hopeful, because I think it would be great if for both seasons, if it was the first 6 episodes is part one, the next 6 episodes are
Act
part two.
1 and
Yeah,
Act 2.
two. Yeah, and that honestly would make sense where, you kind of get like you kind of get that in the Clone Wars, TV show of where you have these arcs of where it goes from episode 1 to 3, and then it changes the story
Yeah,
on
exactly,
and onto
exactly.
the
That's
next one,
that's what I
and
was
that's what
saying
I'm
with
hoping.
the 3 episode act
Yeah,
thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
yeah,
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's 12.
yep,
So
yep,
I wouldn't doubt that our next it's it's been an incline up, and people were
yeah,
expecting another like a finish, but we didn't get a finish. Now it's going to be the next episode. That's why I would almost guarantee that the next episode is when we get the heist.
yeah,
And then our next scene is with Mon Mothma in the car with her husband.
yep.
So yeah, you can just see that even her husband is just done with this whole like politic game. He just enjoys being like rich, I guess. You just
Yeah,
it's interesting just seeing her just hating life, but having her compassion is not in her relationship with her family anymore, and you see that it's all going to go towards the rebellion in the future. So what do you think of that scene?
so I'm just trying to make a um I'm trying to guess of like of what her future, because we know that she, leaves the Senate and everything, and then
Mhm.
she becomes, a huge part of the Rebel Alliance. But we really don't know like what the pinpoint of where it was in Rebels, where she was like, I'm speaking out like freely against the Empire or whatever, and
Mhm.
maybe it was because of like the Emperor did something to her family, and then she was like, all right, enough is enough. Like my family is dead because of the Empire and stuff, and then she fully like breaks, the shackles from where she was, you know staying with the Empire. And I think she was just like, all right, I'm done with this. And then she ends up like doing her different speeches on the Holonet and Rebels, and then the Phoenix Squadron meets her and stuff like that. And I think will lead into that, because I think, they are trying to build up her family and everything to
Mhm.
where something will happen to them, and it will be because of the Empire. And it might be because of, maybe of what she did, or maybe they kind of secretly find out like that she's been, secretly doing stuff with the rebels.
Mhm.
And then the Empire's like, you are paying the price by us killing your family, or just doing something that will like, make her be like, all right, enough is
Do
enough.
you do you think that they would have a kind of scene like I think there was like tales of back in World War II of how people would have their own families rat out to the Nazi parties about how their
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
they would rat out their own family.
shoot, I
And
could
I
see that happening too. Oh
like
dude,
wouldn't
dark.
it be interesting if her husband or either her daughter ratted them out to the Empire? Like they're like, I've suspected something for so long, and she basically loses her family that way of her family just absolutely just, going
I could see
against
that
them.
happening.
Yeah,
I
like
I
in my
I,
head,
I could
that's
definitely
that's that's
yeah,
a comparison that I think they would do.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Yikes.
is that could you see that happening? Like that's
Yeah, and again, that's a dark path but it's something that I could definitely see the show like going in that direction. I could definitely see them maybe ending the season on that note of where she comes home and there's like a whole like squadron of stormtroopers of being like, we know, I mean, there's been these rumors, you have to come in.
And she's like,
And
who told her? Who told you all
yeah,
of this? And then they're both like, we did.
yeah, oh man, that would be wild. But that would be like a great like plot twist. I think that would be really interesting. And I think what's making the show great right now is that we are going down a very dark path that is supposed to lead into the light side of the rebellion. Like of the rebellion that we see right now in Andor eventually goes into the rebellion that we see in A New Hope. And right now it's a very, very dark, like it's the darker side of the rebellion.
Mhm.
And I think it's, kind of backtracking to what we were talking about earlier, where it's not black and white, like it's a very gray area. And I think we're definitely going to see that more in the upcoming episodes of, not all good decisions are based off of good. I think there are some good decisions that will come off, of some bad things happening. And I think the worst is yet to come. I think they will go through a lot of turmoil and frustrations and sacrifice because, again, this is the same guy that wrote Rogue One. And like you said, there's a chance that that the team's not going to make it because they're listed only for 3 episodes. So
Mhm.
yep.
So then the next scene is them finally making it to that dam base. They get there and they're signaling Gorn, and then the character that threatened Cassian comes up and he's like, "Hey," and starts explaining his story about how his brother was basically killed by the Empire.
Yeah.
He was a farmer, used to farm like trees, and then the Empire basically poisoned the water and destroyed the trees, and he had nothing. So he actually went off and
Yeah.
filled his pockets with stones and jumped off into the water. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, that's a pretty cool statement." And he explains all that to
Cassian.
Cassian. He's like, "That's why I've always hated the Empire." And he's like, "That's as close of an apology as you're gonna get." And I was like, interesting. And then our next scene cuts to Skarsgård's character in his antiquities den, and basically he's on a comm radio trying to hear word from his team, seeing like if they said anything, if anything news happened. And he's just sitting there just being worried because he's helpless. He can't do anything right now until his team's been able to do something.
Yeah.
So
And then the episode ends there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then the episode ends right there.
And ending the episode, we actually did get a couple of more Easter eggs, but not from Star Wars. There were a couple of ones, but if you look in the right corner, like in the top right corner, those are the Sakara stones from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stones are there. It's right next to the Sith holocron and the Jedi
Yeah.
holocron.
Which those are really big. Like
they're gigantic.
Yeah. And I think the first time that we saw giant holocrons like that were in Solo, and I've never actually seen anyone hold it. I never seen that. I'm really curious of what knowledge is in those because those are big. Like those are giant holocrons. So I'm really curious. But yeah, on a scale from 1 to 10, what do you think of the episode?
Ooh, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's hard. I love character drama, and I love where they're just building it and building this universe. I don't want to put it on a scale, but it is maybe like an 8 for me, 8 or 9. But I would assume that it would go up once we get our payoff next episode. Um, I love the world building through these characters' backstories. I love that, and I love the characters in this show so far. Where would you put it for yourself?
I would probably put it in a 7. I'm enjoying the show. I understand why it's going at the pace that it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna be really disappointed if the next episode is not the heist.
Yeah,
Because if they're sitting up on the hill, talking about their feelings and everything again, I'm gonna be like, all right, listen. There is a time and a place to do this, and you just did that in the last episode, and now you're just extending that like story to these characters where most likely all of them will not make it except Cassian. So let's get on with the heist. I really would like to see what we saw in the trailers of where the stakes are high.
mm-hmm.
And right now it's just, they're talking about it. It's, to me, it's just like they are talking about it, they're getting ready for it. It's been, a lot going on just to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to be disappointed if they're just up on a hill at night and they're just looking up at the stars and then they're just talking about how bad the Empire is. I would be like, okay, as great as this is, let's get down to business.
Here's the one thing for me is that I would rather have it be long, drawn out with characters that are developed and explained to me for the character drama so that I care about the characters than having another Kenobi where it's 6 episodes and I don't feel that connection.
Right. And I think that's why the show is doing great on that part. But the thing with Kenobi was that was all one giant like connected story. When you said the like 3 episodes are like one arc, these next 3 episodes are one arc.
But
going forward,
I think we all said that. I think that Kenobi could have used extra episodes to build character development. I don't think anyone. I think it was one of its biggest criticisms is that we would have loved some extra episodes to push that character development. And I'm like, I would much rather have a 12 episode series where they take their time rather than rush it. Because if the payoff is good in the end, the payoff is good in the end. But if you mess up, no one's going to forgive that. No. So
I still really enjoyed Kenobi. I loved seeing, and to be honest, I think it was because of that throwback of having the original actors come back and play those characters. And I think that's why I was in love with it. The story was great, but I was mainly there to see those two on screen together again, of seeing Obi-Wan and Anakin on screen, and having that chemistry and getting new scenes, because it's something like, for me, it was like, I never thought I would ever see those two on screen ever again like that. And we got them, having a flashback, and then we got them as Ben Kenobi and then Vader. And it was very sentimental to the fans. And there was a lot of fan service there. And then if you watch, The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, there's a lot of fan service in there too. That is, connecting the dots like directly to the originals and the prequels and the sequels. And then you have Andor, where the main thing that they're trying to stay connected to is Rogue One, like not the prequels, not the original trilogy, but directly to Rogue One. And that's the direction I think. I mean, and in a way, I think maybe they're like, all right, this like show is, staying in the Rogue One universe, not the Star Wars universe. Is staying in the Rogue One universe. And I think that's why it's not feeling directly like Star Wars. I think it's feeling more like Rogue One because they're trying to, have that same vibe of it.
Yeah. So for our next episode, we're probably gonna get the heist. We're gonna be very extremely happy with that. Is there anything else that you expect to happen in that next episode? I think they're just building up these characters so that they die, but it's fine. It'll be a far more emotional impact if you
Yes.
know the characters, you
Yep.
love the characters because you've heard their stories, and then they die in emotional ways. Because if someone gets shot and I don't know them, like a stormtrooper, I don't really care. But if I know the stormtrooper's backstory, like it's Finn, and we understand his backstory, and he gets shot and he dies, then I'm like, wow, I actually have an emotional connection, and now I'm disappointed or sad.
Right. Well, then here's my question: do you want the heist to happen the next episode, or do you want another episode
No,
where it's
no,
character
no, no,
building?
no. I want the heist to happen next episode.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay.
Guaranteed. There's no part of me that's like, it's not, now is not the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that we live in the world of everything has to be so. We live in the world of TikTok where everything has to be super fast, and you only get so much attention span. Where that's the biggest criticism of the show is just like, come on, do something. It's like, just give it time, because then it has emotional weight. Because when these payoffs happen, I think there'll be some of the best payoffs that have happened in Star Wars in a long time, because they took their time with it.
And it's not that I don't want it to be fast paced. It's just like, I don't know how much can be drawn out more, because for some reason, if the next episode was, them just sitting up there, and them talking more about of how the Empire has affected their lives, I'm like, we just got this in the last episode, but you're telling different stories. Like, I just don't. I don't know.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
So if it's heist needs to happen the next episode. I want to see them leaving the base. I would love to see that trailer of where Cassian's getting chased by TIE fighters, and then you see like the flaming stars coming on through. That's gonna look epic, bro. I'm so excited for that, because that was my favorite part of the trailer. And then there's another shot of the trailer with Luthen and his ship, and TIE fighters are like chasing him, and then he does like the laser thing, and I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see that so bad. And I'm really curious of what the next episodes will be, because after the heist, we really don't know exactly what's going on. So I'm really, really curious.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. But yeah, and then you have the Tales of the Jedi, which is super, super exciting. Coming out on October 26th. All of the episodes are dropping as well. It is 6 episodes. It's gonna have these character developments for Ahsoka and for Count Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, something that I'm very excited for the series, especially, I think it might be the last episode of like the Ahsoka arc, and it's gonna be her fighting off this Sith Inquisitor.
Yeah.
But also
Bird mask, man.
Yeah. But also, I think the beginning of it is gonna be Ahsoka being at Padme's funeral on Naboo.
Ooh, cool.
And that's tying like directly into the movie. So I'm very excited to see that. And then to see, Qui-Gon and Count Dooku, like different sides of these characters, has me very, very excited. And I just love all the Star Wars that we're getting. I love this time because ever since 2015, to me, it was the fall and the winter going in is, it's Star Wars. It's that time for, Star Wars, because when Force Awakens came out, it really didn't hit me that Star Wars was back until I came into work. Because at the time I was working at a movie theater, so I saw the movie a couple of days before, and I was like, all right, great, cool. And I walk in, and maybe it's like 2 hours before the actual like first like screening, and there's a line just going out the door that's going all the way down the street. I'm like, oh my god. And of just making popcorn and just hearing like the cheers and the screams and everything at the theater. And I was like, it's back, it's back. And then they just kept doing that almost every winter, and it just made me so happy. So I'm really glad that we are kind of back into that Star Wars uh into the Star Wars season. And then next year you've got so many projects coming out. And you've got Mandalorian season 3, you've got Skeleton Crew, you've got Ahsoka, you've got Jedi Survivor, you have the Bad Batch, and then not really Star Wars, but then you got Indiana Jones. So it's like there's a lot happening next year as well, and then the year after that in 2024 is when we're getting season 2 of Andor. So Star Wars isn't going like away anytime soon. So I'm super pumped for the future of Star Wars. And Tales of the Jedi, honestly, I think the show can be phenomenal. I think if this goes great, they could just keep doing like future seasons of where they just talk about Obi-Wan and young Obi-Wan with like Qui-Gon, and he's with Satine and they're on the run. And then you could also do Mace Windu, and then Samuel L. Jackson can come back because we all know he's been wanting to come back. So it's just like there's ways to make this show like bring more excitement to the prequels and more character development for these characters, because now I guarantee after we watch the arc with Count Dooku, we won't be able to look at Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith or the Clone Wars show ever the same again, because we'll finally have a real reason why he's acting the way that he is.
I'm super excited for that to be explained or showed more.
Yeah, I'm pumped, and I love that we're getting more details of characters like this. And it's something we talked about on Sunday's podcast. I don't think they'll do that for Yoda. I think they'll stay away from that. I mean, as much as I would love that of seeing maybe when Yoda first became a Jedi, and then after that, maybe we see him during the High Republic, and then we see him, maybe being old man Yoda all the way, from that gap from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope, of seeing that versions like those kind of versions of Yoda would be really cool to see. But I don't want them to touch the origin of where he's from or anything.
So you would be okay with what they're doing with the High Republic, like if they showed him?
Yeah. Like I mean of just showing a different version of him, like a younger version of him. That's fine, but I don't want them to be like doing what
this is the planet he's from.
Right, because I don't want them to do what they're doing with Ahsoka of where like oh look, this is baby Ahsoka, this is Ahsoka's mom. Like I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to be like,
okay,
this is fair. Yeah, like I want that to remain a mystery, because that's what makes the character so great. And we know sometimes when the mystery is taken away from the character and you get their origin, it's not as much as we love and as we did before. Because what made Vader and Boba Fett and Yoda, all these characters, so great is like we didn't know their origins, and it was a mystery. And the fact that we got Boba Fett, and his first appearance was in a cartoon on the holiday special, and he's riding this giant dinosaur with his rifle. It was just like, oh my gosh, cool. And then like a couple of years later, we end up seeing him in a movie, and it's like, whoa, and we know nothing about him. And then you got you got Darth Vader, and we get his whole backstory in the prequels, which I think was done well. But I think for Boba Fett, it was kind of like a mix, because I just got done rewatching the Book of Boba Fett, and after he got his ass handed to him by Black Chrysanthemum, and he walks down wearing a bathrobe, I was like, oh, like come on. So, yeah, yep. Are you okay?
Yeah. I was looking at something over here. Yeah, I don't know. For me, when it comes to like you have these golden moments of Star Wars where just don't touch it. Like, just let it be what it
Yeah,
is. Unfortunately, Star Wars is that double edged sword where everyone wants everything explained. However, sometimes the mystery is just far better than that. Like the biggest complaint that people have that I hear that people are still like, "Why did you explain that?" is saying metachlorians and explaining metachlorians as like a scientific view in the prequels. And I'm like, for me, I didn't really like I still look back to that and I go like, yeah, that really didn't need to be explained. Like I liked it being like the force just being a mystical and not knowing about it. And some people like knowing about it, some people don't. I mean, if they actually do try and explain Yoda's origin, I definitely don't want it from a planet's perspective. I just kind of want him like a younger version. Like I would love to see him as a Padawan.
yeah,
Love to see him in his age of the High Republic because I would love to see the High Republic in live action.
yeah, yeah. And I think we're gonna see the end of it in the show Acolyte. I think that's gonna be addressed because that show takes place during the end of the age of the High Republic, I think is what they talked about. Because I think that show's gonna lead into like, of Darth Plagueis and everything, and I think that's what they're trying to do with it. At least that's what everyone's hoping they will do with it.
Mhm.
Uh and that's really exciting because that's an era that's never been really touched. And it's gonna be dealing with something in Star Wars that's like it's not stormtroopers, it's not clone troopers, it's its own thing, and it's going to be very interesting to see that come to light and them. I'm really curious on how that show's going to do, and I think Andor is a great kind of starter point for new projects in Star Wars because I think Acolyte's going to have the same type of tone of Andor, but I think it's also going to be more, you know, it's going to be more mystical. It's going to be more mysterious, and hopefully it's more dark. Like,
Yeah, for real. And
yeah,
there's as I think that the theme of something that we really wanted was a horror series, a horror movie.
yeah,
I still think that we could do a Grievous one just the same way that they did it before because that is so cool to me. The way they did it in the Clone Wars, I would love to see that in live action.
yeah, yeah. His he also has like a dark past too. Like he has a very very dark
That would be
past.
a cool origin story.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind watching that.
My only thing is like I don't think they would be able to do it live action, and the only reason why is because Count Dooku plays a huge part in in
Okay.
his origin
Yeah, that's
and the
true.
fact that Christopher Lee passed away. I mean I think they could do it, but it's like it would be difficult to do. But yeah. Yeah. And then to kind of end today's episode, we wanted to tell everyone
Let's go giveaway.
about the giveaway that has just ended for B2 Emo. Honestly, not that many people sign up for this one, and it's really sad because he's a really cool character. And we haven't seen him in 2 episodes. And it's very, very tragic. But I will be announcing those winners on our Instagram in just a couple of hours here. But
Yay.
again, to end the podcast today, we just wanted to give a there were a lot of people that were affected by the hurricane in Florida, and we just wanted to send our thoughts and prayers to everyone that was affected by the flooding and everything. Josh, myself, Matt, Mason, and Brooke were all here for it, and we came out strong. I think Josh had, super
No
bad flooding,
power,
right?
but we're good
Yeah,
now. I mean, I
yeah,
would have loved to be there last week on episode, but yeah.
yeah, yep. So, our thoughts are going out to everyone that was affected by the hurricane. But yeah, uh, with that being said, thank you all so much for being fans of the podcast and following us. We're on Facebook. We have our own page, Star Wars Stuff group, and Star Wars Stuff podcast page. And please go support us on Patreon. We have wonderful stuff. We are recording a new episode of Sabak Talk this Friday. Wah, wah. So we're super excited and pumped about that. We're on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Podcast, Twitter at Stuff Podcast, TikTok, just search Star Wars Stuff Podcast. And guess what? Our Gmail is Star Wars Stuff Podcast at gmail.com. And please go on Apple Podcasts, talk about how great David is. 5 stars. We love it. And we're also on Twitch, SW Stuff 77. Again, everyone, we would not be doing this if it wasn't for you. We love you all. We hope to get a train heist, some type of heist next week for the new episode. We're super pumped, and maybe some Max Rebo, but we'll see. Thank you so much for listening. May the Force be with you
Always.
Always.